It's that time. We're about to kick off an episode of Consulting Unfiltered. We're here to share the real talk on career growth in finance and consulting. You want to be a CFO? You want to get to partner at a firm? Learn from true stories on how to achieve these goals. We will not hold back on anything. Get ready to laugh, learn, and level up your game. Is influence without authority more about being their friend or confidant, like personal skills, or knowing more than they do, strategic or knowledge authority? When you're a consultant, oftentimes you are not anyone's boss or manager, yet you have to steer their ship. We're going to review the key factors that enable consultants to lead effectively without formal power. Welcome to Consulting Unfiltered, Adventures in Leadership. Today, we're exploring the challenges and techniques of leading without formal authority in consulting. How can you build credibility and drive change within a client's organization? And we're joined again today by Cynthia. Thanks for joining us, Cynthia. Tell me a little bit about the different positions that you've had with clients when you are in the consulting space. What kind of different positions are you kind of responsible for in their organization?
Sure. So I have to think back over the years. I have been just a bookkeeper, just tracking the numbers, doing the bank reconciliations, things of that nature. I have operated as their controller, a fractional controller. I spent more years operating as a fractional controller than as a bookkeeper. So a little bit more authority, maybe some people reporting up to you that work directly for the company, but you're not employed by the company except as a consultant, and then also as a fractional CFO in some cases. And then in that case, you're working generally with outside agencies as well, the CPA firm, maybe their banking, investment firm. You're working on legal with them, things like that.
Yeah, I like it. So what are we talking about here? What is the core challenge? What are we looking for when we're saying we want to have formal authority, or who has formal authority in a business?
In the business itself, formal authority in my eyes would be, if I'm hired to work in the business, it would be the individual that brought me into the business. So my influence on whoever is working there is going to be a coaching influence, and then letting the individual that brought me or my company into the business to work with them, I would be providing them with any feedback on their staff.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, in a business, when we're talking about authority, so are we saying who can fire people, who can hire people, who can write them up? Is that what you think about with authority?
Those are all HR functions. So authority extends beyond HR into who determines who needs more training. Should we change a certain process internally to be more efficient? Do we need to look at when financing needs to be brought in? Do we have a situation that requires us to discuss it with their attorney? Are we working with venture capitalists and making the decisions of the data that gets sent over to the venture capitalist? Because potentially the person that brought you into the business is not that well versed in that data. You present it to them first, and then you get a sign off and present to whoever you're working with. But they brought you there for a reason. So you make sure that you are providing what you were hired to do. So beyond HR type of functions, maybe it's influence or decision making, or we have a culture here of bring up problems, tell us all the things, and also hopefully bring up some solutions with that. But ultimately somebody has to shut things down if people are going in a wrong direction. Right. So that kind of talks a little bit about authority too. Who has the power? Somebody just last week brought to me, they said, we need to, with our software that we're starting up, we have a quoting tool that compares, what their current licensing costs, hosting costs are, and things like that with what it's going to be like in the future, adding our software.
And somebody came and said, well, we need to do this for, and to translate it to Canadian dollars. And I was like, well, bring me 10 Canadian clients first, and then we'll build a special tool for Canadian clients as well, right? Like, we're not going to do it just for the one. But somebody has to be that voice of authority. So yeah, okay. So those are some good thoughts of like, what does that even mean? I like that we're kind of describing that. So as a consultant, when you go over and you start working with the client, what are some of the challenges you face when you are trying to steer their ship, as I was saying earlier, or lead them when you don't have formal authority?
I mean, the biggest thing I've had to overcome working with accounting staff or operational staff at other businesses is their fear. They automatically think the business owner brought you in to remove them and remove their influence. And that's 99% of the time is not the case. They bring us in as a consultant to help streamline what that person, that's already a valuable person. That person has worked there. They already have their internal influence. They already have the trust of the business owner. But as soon as you bring a consultant into a business, there's a fear factor that you have to overcome. Mm-hmm. And if you can't overcome it, I have gone to work in businesses where the staff couldn't overcome their fear factor no matter what you said, and they made it a self-fulfilling prophecy that they wouldn't be there.
That the staff's not there. It's so interesting that you say it that way too, because, staff, you're saying like the staff reaction. The staff reaction is this, and they think that maybe somebody's coming in to replace their job. And a lot of times when people are bringing in consultants, it's actually the leaders who are feeling like they have imposter syndrome. Like they need somebody to come in and say, you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong. And they're actually feeling like they're the problem. And that's why they bring a consultant, because they feel like they've hit their own personal, mental, whatever their knowledge limitations are. And so it has truthfully nothing to do with the staff at all when people come on board. So how do you, so let's start with the staff then, since we were there. How do you start to build credibility with staff at an organization when you're coming in as a consultant?
Right. So when I go in as a consultant, I'll have my initial meeting with the staff, and my approach is always, hey, I don't do your job, so I need you to help me understand what is happening here. And then from that data, we'll either determine that the process works, or I throw wrenches into everything. I do it at Fourlane all day long, every day. People get so sick of me. They're like, oh, another wrench, Cynthia. I say, hey, at this point, I think that we could have changed something to make it easier. And so just getting that rapport with the people that you're working with is really important for them, so that they understand that you're not there. So as you do your initial onboarding and interviews, they understand that you're not there to replace them. You don't want to replace them. You are simply there. My function, Joe hired us to identify if we can improve efficiency. Not that you're not doing anything correctly. So let them know why we're there and what our end goal is. As much as we can, because sometimes we can't let them know everything. Right.
Sometimes the leaders have put a gag order on us on what we're allowed to disclose. But so 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 let's just say we come in, we go, okay, I am here to help with efficiency. So a lot of times when I would go into a consultant, a lot of times being on site mattered a lot, right? We always, Fourlane's always been a remote company because we've always said if a client wants to see us, they don't want to come to our offices. They want us to come to theirs. They want to show off their, corner office. They want to show us their manufacturing floor. They want to show off how we had a client that built a robot to do, to like close up their packages. And he was so excited to show it off to me one day. And I was like, okay. But I mean, efficiency was very efficient. He probably did replace people's jobs, but I didn't do it. So how much does psychology play, I guess, compared to, like you mentioned, we have to tell them the why, if we can tell them the why. But if you're going and you say, hey, I'm here to make your job faster or be able to do your job faster, I mean, their initial reaction is going to be kind of defensive. So how do you overcome something like that?
Right. So, I mean, we see that here internally in our operations department when I started working with those people as well. The whole team was kind of like, what are you doing, Cynthia? And just gaining their trust and to show them that we're trying to make things more automated and easier for them, it was a hurdle. So when you enter a client, it's the same thing. It's a hurdle. And you just kind of have to just keep coaching along and keep saying, so tell me more, and understanding what they do day to day provides assurance that you're not there to replace.
Yeah. And I think one of the hardest things too is when you can, when you're able to say to them, why do you do it this way? And then they can come back and feel comfortable actually saying to you, I don't know. So that when you get that first, I don't know from staff, it's like, okay, I've kind of broken down the barriers a little bit. They feel like I am not, here to take over their jobs. I'm here to actually help them. And then the other thing I was kind of thinking about too is, when I go in, I do talk to them on a personal level. So I like to connect personally with them, maybe look around their desk if we are on site and say, who is this person in the picture? Or, you see a 49ers logo or something like that. And you get, do you guys like football? So allowing them to talk about something personally also helps to get them to kind of soften. Down, yeah. And it's I think it's absolutely crucial to talk personally with people before you start to dive in on their jobs. It like almost eases a little bit. Or the other thing that I do frequently is I will be very self-deprecating, right? So I will tell a story, whether it's precise or not, about myself and when somebody came in, right? Because when my whole thing about how I started Fourlane was, I had somebody come in, and I mean, it makes me cringe when I talk about it now, because they literally showed me how to set up a credit card register in QuickBooks. I mean, it's so silly. And I mean, nobody taught me how to use QuickBooks. I taught myself, but I never stumbled on this. I didn't even know what it meant at the time. I didn't have any accounting classes or anything. And it's something so simple, but it made a huge impact. And for me to be able to tell that vulnerable moment, right? It also helps to break down that barrier. Do you have any stories like that for yourself that, kind of are your vulnerable moments throughout your career that you share? I
mean, there are so many softwares that I didn't know anything about, and I was sent into the client. I'll never forget, I had to go, it was a utility conglomerate, and it was local here in Connecticut. And I'd never heard of Blackbaud, didn't know what it did. Knew it was accounting software. I mean, there had to be reports, right? And I had to sit down with the young lady that was sitting in that seat. And she's like, oh, this is how you do everything. And then she kept going, can you tell me again why you're here? You don't understand our software at all. And it wasn't about the software. That's not why we were there. We were there to look for some fraud. And I couldn't tell her that, because she was the person that they were looking for fraud. And I was like, I just need to pull some reports. And so we pulled reports and exported to Excel and stuff, but it's embarrassing to go someplace and say, I know nothing about whatever software you're using. But I was hired to analyze your financials, and there's a reporting function in every set of financials. So we don't always know everything when we show up. We don't know what software Sage has like how many different levels. I can't tell you how many different levels I've had to walk into on Sage and say, hey, I haven't worked on Sage 300 before. Can you walk me through your job costing? Those types of things.
So Tell me about a time when a client or maybe like the staff member, I'm still sticking with the staff members because that's just like, I mean, we talk a lot about how to influence the other side of it. But when you're trying to influence and steer the ship, oh my goodness, with the staff members, have you ever hit a wall where they just flat say no? I mean, what do you do when they I've had this happen for sure. I'm going to go talk to my manager real quick about this. Or I don't think I should share this information with you, right?
I don't know if you have the authority to see this data.
Right.
So in that case, I in the past have just said, okay, well, let's bring your manager in the room and let's go through the things that we're allowed to go through. It's the same thing in HR when you have two employees and you're like, oh, let's all get in the same room. Just bringing everybody in the same room kind of gets you over that hurdle.
Mm-hmm. And celebrating them in that moment
yes.
too, right? By saying like, that is what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to protect the company first.
Right.
And they don't know who we are. So asking for those barriers is actually a sign of a good employee.
Correct.
Also, right?
Yeah.
And we as consultants need to see that, not feel that defensiveness or that protection, and take it and celebrate, because that means that they are maybe, I mean, it could be that they're looking out for themselves with their possible fraud that they are doing, but most of the time it's that they're looking out for the company, right?
Correct.
So what strategies do you use, or what strategies can you tell a new consultant who's coming in that if they want to go in and drive change in the client's organization, how can they come in and have the air of authority, right, without having the formal authority?
I mean, I think to have the air of authority, you need to be confident in yourself. You need to show confidence. Whether you're confident exactly in their software or not is different than you're confident in your ability to affect change for them. Mm-hmm. So we don't need to know their software, but we do need to know like internal accounting process and procedure. And we can talk to them about best practices and internal controls and tell stories about the last time you had to take a bunch of data in Excel and parse it out to get into their new software. Just the confidence in your own abilities is going to go a long way towards getting that authority that they're going to recognize that you're their go-to person.
Right. And you want to be the staff's go-to person, right? Like one of our core values here at Fourlane is we say, if a staff member leaves a company, we want them to bring us in to the next company. So it matters not just to be a influencer or to care about the decision makers at the company or the owners of the company. It matters to build your network and to build up your business. It matters to make sure that you connect at all levels, because you never know where they're going to end up and who they're going to one day become. And so that is a way to really build up your future consulting opportunities.
I mean, if you don't connect with the staff, it's going to make your engagement really difficult.
Yeah, I agree.
From the beginning.
I agree. All right, guys, you let us know what you think. The big question this week is influence without authority more about personal skills or about strategic positioning? Let us know what you think. And thank you, Cynthia, so much for joining us again. And that's a wrap on another amazing episode of Consulting Unfiltered. Don't miss out on all the candid chats and practical wisdom coming your way. Hit that subscribe button to stay connected and keep taking those steps forward in your career. We'll see you soon.